Congressman Mick Mulvaney is on the phone with us.
Hey, Ann, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
Very good. So where are you right now? Are you in South Carolina or up in Washington?
No, we're in D.C. this week. Be home this weekend, back up in D.C. next week, and then home for a week towards the middle of the month.
Well, that's great. So how are things? How do you feel things are going up there in Washington?
Slow. My guess is you've seen the leadership of both parties sort of decide that we're finished legislating for a while and we're campaigning now. The president certainly has taken that course with his current tour. You're not going to see anything substantial happen in Washington, I don't think. Now, obviously, against that, you've got this issue of this super committee that's supposed to come up with all these savings by Thanksgiving. So I guess that's the one thing that you'll probably hear about from Washington for the next couple of weeks.
Well, what have you heard coming out of the super committee?
Nothing. No. I think it took them a couple of weeks to decide on a schedule of when to meet. So, and then they fought another couple of weeks over how to count. That's always interesting.
How to count?
Yeah, how to count. In Washington, remember, we don't really cut spending here. We reduce the rates of future spending. So we never cut spending from one year to the next. And the fight over is, well, were we really going to spend $150 on this program next year or $160? Because if we spend $100 this year and we're going to spend $130 next year, is that a $20 cut or a $30 cut? Again, because if you spend $100 this year and you're going to spend $150 or $160 next year, then clearly spending $130 isn't an increase like it would be for most normal human beings. It's actually a cut in Washington speak. So they're had been fighting over how to count those types of reductions in future spending. So it's an amazing way to run a country, isn't it?
It is. Now you've been up there about 10 months. Have you been surprised? I mean, you were in Congress in the state down here in South Carolina, but have you been amazed at the way things run up there in Washington?
Amazed? No. I followed it just like a lot of folks back home did, and I knew it had certain level of dysfunction, so I wasn't surprised by that. And it's not fair to say that the town is entirely dysfunctional. We actually get along a lot better than people see in the news. We accomplish a lot more than what people read about. But, the thing that makes headlines, the thing that sells advertising, is when we fight, yell, and scream at each other, which happens a good bit as well. So it's not nearly as bad as the folks back home perceive it to be, but it's still pretty bad. And like I said, every time you decide that you're going to start running for the next election, which is what many people up here have decided they're going to do, it's very difficult to actually make law in that type of environment.
Well, I know the president is working on the We Can't Wait program.
Yeah, I tell a story about the president's jobs program and about his We Can't Wait, and of course, the first thing that I remember about the president's jobs bill is watching the speech. And he said, pass this bill, and we all looked at each other on the floor and said, what bill? And in fact, the bill wasn't even offered to us for several weeks after he got up there that night and said, pass this bill. So that sort of started this level of rhetoric that you sort of got the impression was designed more to be a campaign speech than a real job speech. But the one that sticks in my mind is the night that I was sitting at my desk reading the president's jobs bill and going down the list saying, okay, kind of like that part. I don't like that. I don't like that. That might be okay. I don't like that one. And just as I was sitting here making that list, he comes on television. I've got a TV in my office, and he said, "Look, this is not a buffet. This is not an a la carte menu. This is all or nothing. Take it or leave it." And when somebody comes up and says that in Washington, what they really say is they had no intention for it ever to pass. And in fact, that's what I think is being revealed now. This was not a jobs bill. It was a campaign platform for the president to run on.
So let's see. Yesterday the mortgage help, and then today he's supposed to be coming out with something for student loans.
Yeah, the mortgage help thing. Of course, if you've heard this act before, it's because you have. If you think that you've heard it before, you heard it about 2 years ago when he said that this mortgage insurance, this mortgage program was going to help 7 to 9 million homeowners and prevent the rates of foreclosure from going up. And of course, it's been a dismal failure. We've been doing exactly what the president is talking about doing more of for the last 2 years, and it hasn't worked. I think the real number is that the 1.5 to 1.7 million people nationwide actually participated in the original mortgage assistance program. So it's been a dismal failure, but it sounds really good. It's easy to explain to people who are hurting, look, I'm going to give you money, and it's going to make your life better. That's an easy message for people to deliver, and it's what the President is out there delivering. It's a much more difficult message, but I think a much more substantive message to say, look, we're going to have to fix the system in order for it to get better. We can't make you better by taking money away from one group of people and giving it to you, especially when that group of people is your kids, because that's what we're doing. We're borrowing this money to run all this stimulus program the President has put into place. It's a much more difficult argument to say, look, we need to fix the tax system. We need to fix the regulatory system. We need to change our energy policies. We need to do all of these things so that we change the economy fundamentally, and that ultimately will make people better off. So the President's taking the easy road, the intellectually easy way out, and the stuff that's easy to sell, and the rest of us are left actually trying to fix the problem.
I know, Mick, you were on the committee, the Budget Committee, and, of course, you were a big proponent of cut, cap, and balance, and you want an amendment to the Constitution. What do you think the possibilities of that are?
That's actually, that's a great question. We will vote on a balanced budget amendment here before the end of the year. There is actually a fairly decent chance that it would pass the House. And the Senate I can't speak to. I don't understand the dynamics over there, the politics, who the players are. But there's actually a group of Democrats here who are supporting a balanced budget amendment. We need to get roughly 40 or 50 of them. I can't remember what the exact number is. But we need, a couple dozen Democrats to vote for a balanced budget amendment. It passed the House back in the late 1990s. And I think there might actually be a chance it passes the House again. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if it does pass the House, if the Senate would actually take it up or not. But I think that could be one of the more interesting storylines for the next couple of weeks.
Well, that would be something good to hear. Now, as far as the candidates out there, haven't you come out and supported a candidate?
I did. I'm writing economic policy for Rick Perry. In fact, I know he was in South Carolina yesterday unveiling his Cut, Balance, and Grow. And if it sounded familiar with Cut, Cap, and Balance, it was supposed to. That's why he asked me to get involved with helping to advise the team on economic policy. So we took all the pieces of Cut, Cap, and Balance and sort of fleshed it out into a larger overall program that he's calling Cut, Balance, and Grow. So I am helping the governor. In fact, I think I'm going on TV a couple times today to talk about the tax policies that he's offering.
Now, on this tax policy, I understand you'd have an option to pay your taxes on the old tax code or with the 20%.
True, and it's done mostly for messaging purposes. If people are afraid to change and they don't trust Washington, believe me, in many circumstances you're right not to trust Washington. But if there's sort of that inertia that says, oh, maybe I like the tax system the way it is, the option says, fine, you can do this. You can stay there in the same tax system you said before, the same 75,000 pages, however many it is. You can pay your tax advisor. You can continue as you have for the last couple decades. Or if you want to opt in, you can simply pay a 20% flat tax. It's actually modeled after a system that has been tremendously successful in Hong Kong, and about 90% of the people there opt in to the flat tax. That system, by the way, in Hong Kong generates almost as much revenue as a percentage of GDP as our unusually bizarre system does in the United States. So there really are some very positive attributes to it. And we expect a lot of people to take the option if given it to them. I certainly know I would take it. But for folks who want to continue the way things are, then that option is still available to them. It's still on the table.
That's terrific. Now, as far as getting our people back to work, is there anything happening in the Congress side that may help us get this thing rolling?
Now, we're trying in the House, and the Senate just keeps killing us. What we look at, for example, let's talk about South Carolina. Let's talk about jobs in South Carolina. The one everybody has paid a little bit of attention to, at least, is the thing down at Boeing. The NLRB is trying to sue to close that, is suing Boeing to try and close that plant down in Charleston. Put about 1,100 South Carolinians out of work in high-quality manufacturing, export-driven jobs, which is exactly what the president says he wants us to be doing. But yet his NLRB is trying to prevent us from doing exactly that in South Carolina, primarily because we're a non-union state and the jobs are coming in large part from Washington State, where they are all union jobs. We've passed 2 or 3 bills this year out of the House to try and prevent the NLRB from doing that, to stop the lawsuit, and the Senate kills the bill. There's also new EPA regulations coming out that would force a lot of our wood and paper product companies to either dramatically scale back or to go out of business entirely. There are rules coming out of the EPA that would dramatically shut down our domestic cement and concrete production. We've passed bills in the House to stop those things from happening so that we can try and save jobs that we've got now. They're all coming at the hand of the Obama administration, and the Senate continues to kill the bill. So we try and do it every single day. Again, it doesn't get widely reported because it doesn't ever become law. But the House, it's not lost on the House that the impact of what the White House is doing on our jobs back home in South Carolina is terrible, and we'll continue to slug it out. I think, however, to see real change, you're going to have to wait till after the next election. That's
a long time, Mick. I mean, even though it isn't, but it is.
It is, especially when you're unemployed.
Exactly.
Unemployment in my district is about 15%. Wider state, it's right around 10%. And it's a tremendously long time. And there's a lot the president could do right now. He did do one thing that actually helped. He told the EPA not to roll out the new ozone rules, which would have stopped all economic development in South Carolina. There's these bizarre new rules for how much ozone can be in the air. And it would put every county in South Carolina in non-attainment, which affects our ability to get road money, affects our ability to do economic development. And to his credit, about 6 weeks ago, the president instructed the EPA to pull back on those regs. So you got to give credit where credit is due, but I think that the example just goes to show how the administration is fighting us as we try and not only add new jobs, but protect the ones that we've got.
And really, one more question. I just heard about this in the news. I'm not sure whether you know that much about it, but this the Freedom of Information Act, they're going to start saying that documents don't exist, so they don't have to give them up. Have you heard about that?
Who's saying that?
From the government, that so they don't have to actually give these up. This is what I heard on the news this morning.
But if documents truly don't exist, how would you give them up?
But they do exist. They're just going to start saying that.
Oh, no, I haven't. That's a new one on me. I've never, a lot of what happens in Washington is exempt, believe it or not, from the Freedom of Information Act. Go figure. Congress wrote the law and exempted itself. To a certain extent, maybe that's understandable in that you want to be free to go through the process of negotiation when you and compromise when you pass law. But a blanket exception is a very unusual thing. So, but I haven't heard of that recent development on the FOI.
All right, and then real quick, Bernanke, you got to interview him, talk to him the other day. How do you think that he's feeling about what's going to transpire with the country?
He's a very serious man. He's a very smart man. I just happen to take the view that what he's doing is fundamentally flawed from a philosophical basis. He is a classical Keynesian economist. He believes that government spending can help boost economic activity. And while that may be true in the very, very short run, I think there's a really strong philosophical economic argument. I have a degree in economics. That it doesn't work when you have heavy debt, or it doesn't work when you're in a post-industrial economy like we are now. So we've had some really good philosophical discussions. At the end of the day, I think what both Bernanke and I would tell you is that he's not our biggest problem, because he really does have the ability to change course very quickly. He's not a democracy over there. It's an independent board for a reason. Congress continues to be the problem because we continue to spend all this money that we don't have, which is effectively printing money or borrowing money. Congress is the problem at the root of all of this, not the Fed. Again, I'm still very critical of the Fed, and always welcome the opportunity to question Dr. Bernanke on his policies. But at the end of the day, the problem is Congress spending too much money, not the Fed's tools and how they're supposed to try and deal with that.
Well, you are absolutely, I think, right there, and I think the public would be behind you there, too. Mick Mulvaney, it is so nice to talk to you. It's been a good while. Thanks so much for calling us this morning.
Thanks, Ann. Sorry I was a few minutes late.
Oh, that's okay. You have a great one. Keep up the fight.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.